Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to the episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and joining me this time around is an award-winning writer, artist who has had work across the board. Talk about a new book that's due out very, very shortly. I'm talking to the incomparable I.N.J Culbard. I.N.J, how's it going?
It's going good, thank you.
Excellent.
How are you?
So, good. We're here to talk about your book. Now, I have a mutant ability to get names wrong. All right. So, we're here to talk about, I'm going to say, Salamander. Yeah?
Okay.
Is that right?
No,
Am I wrong?
No, you know, the thing is, people say either Salamander, or they say Salamander, or they'll say Salamander. It honestly doesn't matter. Like, it's deliberately done that way. Do you remember Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah.
Okay, so you remember the scene in the library when he pulls out a copy of Count of Monte Cristo, and he says it's written by Alexandre Dumas.
I feel like a dumbass right now. Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
Interestingly enough, Alexandre Dumas actually said that English in a book, a D'Artagnan book, I've forgotten the name of it, but he said English is nothing more than badly pronounced French. So there you go.
Sacre bleu.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. So, Salamander. Hey, check me out.
Yeah.
So,
there you go.
Tell me about the story. So it's a young gentleman who is a little bit disenfranchised from his family, gets sent across the way to where the bad things are, right?
Yeah. I've got. I'm going to read straight off a bit of copy that I've got here that sums it up.
Go for it.
This is where the young boy loses his father and in turn loses himself in his grief and sent to stay with his grandfather in a country which has lost its freedoms of expression to a totalitarian regime. So it's kind of like he's gone off to a kind of, because I grew up on both sides of the Iron Curtain. You know, I grew up in Poland and I grew up in the UK, and it was while the Berlin Wall was up, and so that was a lot of the inspiration for this. Mm-hmm. And so
So you've got a character here who then he's going through that stressful situation without his father. Well nuanced, I have to say, in the book. When you're of my delicate years, you think you can see like the key of the story. You can think, look for that. But I was actually quite touched by some of the things that happened and some of the lead ups to that. So well done for that. So he ends up in a place that mirrors his sense of loss, really. Although, in his I suppose pre-Iron Curtain days, he's got his mum trying to be like the life and soul of life, and then of course across the way, he's got his grandfather who's like still trying to incorporate elements of fun, art, flowers. And he has a female friend that also sort of, is this inspired the right word? Or is it kind of leads him down the garden path a little bit to his own, I suppose, own rescue?
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and this character's in the book. It's sort of semi-autobiographical. It draws on a lot of stuff that actually happened to me when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And just sort of pieces it together as a story, you know, in this sense, you know, because I was looking at things like, because it's about memories and in the way that we kind of, when we remember stuff, we confabulate stuff. And part of the reason for that is because of the fact that what we're trying to convey every time is the emotion of something that happened. And that's why it changes. The story kind of, it depends what audience you've got. When you're remembering a story, you kind of just you change it to whatever the audience is, and then it sort of distorts. But it's still a true story because fundamentally what you're talking about is the emotion of something that happened. because that's really what you remember. And so what I was doing with this book was to really explore that concept of the way that what memories actually are fundamentally, you know. So yeah, that's where that comes from.
There's a Counting Crows lyric. I love Counting Crows. The lyric goes something like, "Memories are dreams about ghosts."
Yeah,
which always makes me, every time I hear the song, I'm like, so how was it then? I mean, being semi-autobiographical, it's hard to do because it's your story. So then you've got to. I'm sure that everybody has, or loads of people have gone through a sense of loss, whether that be a loved one, the end of a relationship, having your dog put down, whatever it is. There's that sense of loss, and that loss is quite an individual thing. How did it feel for you then, kind of opening up that loss, your loss, to an audience, and kind of, because I mean that's brave, isn't it? Really,
I think it's when you try to write something to reach an audience, you can write something that's true, or you can write something that's universally true. And I found that, like, what I found was that if I dig into something that's very honest or very, you just cut away all the nonsense of something and you get to the heart of what that actually feels like. It possibly resonates on a greater level. You know, it's not just, like you said, it could be somebody who's lost a dog, or they've lost the grand.
That was me. Yeah.
Any one of those things, but fundamentally, that feeling is universally true. So I think it's trying to tap into something like that, really, because it's one thing to say it's sad. Yes, that's very sad, but universally true is like, but it happens to everybody. So I think I don't think it was like, so in that sense, like an answer to your question about whether it's brave or not, kind of, but at the same time, it's like, it's something everybody goes through.
So you're protected because you kind of talk about stuff that people will have experienced.
Yeah.
And then they can transpose their own memories, their own films about ghosts, as it were, onto the emotion that you're trying to show. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Reading the book at the start of the book, and as the transition from one scenario to another, it kind of reminded me, and you might laugh at this, and I mean this as a compliment, I think. It reminded me of the book My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell, because they're in different environments. It's kind of like, but obviously in My Family, he comes to acclimatize in a good way. Your character also acclimatizes through a series of mentors. How important are those mentors? We've talked about the young girl that he befriends, but there's a woman in there as well. And of course, his grandfather, who's the ultimate rebel, is kind of there. How important is it to have those, I suppose, those steering points? Because that's what I feel they are. They're very much like, you can steer this way or you can steer that way, and the true course is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I think it's a navigational thing, isn't it? It's like when you're lost at sea and you're just trying to get some bearing. Those are really the things that are there. In the context of the story, I think they're like bearing points, really. Like, say, he can do what he wants with those once he sees them, and he can go off in whatever direction he wants. Nobody tells him you've got to do it like this. He's got to find his own way of doing it. So, yeah, I think they're really more like bearing points, but I think it's... but they are important, and they are subjective as well, aren't they? The people that we meet in life that have that sort of impact on us. I was thinking more about like, the honesty of that I'm getting caught up in my thoughts on that one.
So the thing that I like about this element, this bearing point, this navigation point, is that if you're a reflective person like I am, you can read the book and like, oh, cool, and then you go back and think about it a little bit. It makes you realize that we don't recognize as people, we don't recognize our own navigational points. till way too late. We have the benefit reading the navigation points in the book because we can sit, read it, reflect on it, and then see them for what they are, and then go back and I get. In our own lives, we don't have that 2020 element where we can just hold on, pause live TV, rewind it back, do it again. You know? So it's kind of
nice if you did.
yeah. That's it. Yeah, we're old school TVs. We're no pausing us.
But to live a flawless life.
Yeah,
I sort of think with that one, it's like if you have that. Yeah, I mean, you only the thing is like you'd never learn anything because you only learn from fault, don't you? So it's like you only ever learn from mistakes. You know, success is one thing, but it's not everything. Everything is the mistakes you make.
And that's that point, isn't it? You can miss your own bearing point the first time around, but then surely when you reflect, you should be able to recognize it the second time around. Yeah, and then of course you get a group of people doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. You know, but we call them Tories. Oh, got political there. Oh dear. We'll get fired off YouTube for that. So writer artist. Yeah. Which do you prefer? Or with it being a writer artist, is it more is it symbiotic? Is it like one begets the other, not one or the other?
Yeah. I think it's funny because I work with Dan Abnett a lot, and we do Brink for 2018.
I love Dan Abnett. Some of his work has been absolutely top notch. What have I read of Dan's recently? Something that I was really surprised about. What was it? Did you honest? This Red Sonja book, where she's wearing the haunted chainmail. Right. What a fun read that is. I absolutely love that book. And I just like the dialogue, the repartee between the chainmail and Sonja. I thought at some point it was a bit of a metaphor for saying don't ever put Sonja in clothes, leave her in a chainmail bikini. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting from it. I don't know. Dan could answer that, but I love Dan's writing. I think he's doing great jobs over at Dynamite massively.
No, he's great. He's fantastic to work with. He's really very inspiring to work with as well. And when we do Brink, for example, a lot of that is breaking down the story together and then basically going a separate way. I sit there and draw it, he writes it, and you know, it's a riffing thing as well, because sometimes I'll draw something, he'll write something in, something he'll pick up in the drawing, he'll, you know, it's that it kind of goes back and forth, or something that he's written I'll change and it becomes something else, and then it becomes a major plot point later on. We start jamming that way when we're working together, and it's really just from concept to finished thing with him. It is like two minds being able to battle that out. Doing that separately, like on my own, is something else. But it's like what I tend to do is I focus exclusively on the writing first, and then I might pay attention to the drawing, but it doesn't really come until after. I act as if I've been given a script and I work from that.
Okay.
Even me giving myself the script. I don't consider things while I'm writing like this is going to be tough to draw. I don't think any of those things. I just get on with writing it. But I love doing the writing process. Just any kind of, I mean, comics is a collaborative medium, and you are telling a story with pictures as well as with words. So it's like whether I'm working with Dan or working on my own, it's the same sort of process to be able to get there. But I think but what I really enjoy is at the beginning getting the ideas to click, and there's no pictures involved with that. Yeah. So I'll have like a murder wall of post-it notes on them, you know, telling me this is I work in 5-act structure, so it's like act 1 there's this, and then act 2 there's got to be this, and this, and then and they start as images in my head where I just put down this would be a great visual thing to do. What does it mean in the context of the story? That puzzle solving I absolutely love. Even when working with Dan, just figuring out the story part is just the most rewarding part of the whole thing. Is just the beginning, starting with nothing. I love the idea of starting with completely nothing. What the benefit of working with Dan is that, and I think that's also why when working on my own, I kind of do it in a weird sort of like split off personalities kind of way of working.
I was going to say, it kind of sounds like you've got like a,
yeah,
a bipolar element there.
I do. I take into account. So I get like I've got 2 of them here, but like I've usually got a green and a red and a blue pen. And when I write notes, the notebooks are full of green and red and blue marks, but they're all different trains of thought. And so when I'm writing, like this can so I can have a train of thought and then another one interrupts because that happens, but I get a different pen for it and I write in that because then I know where that's coming from. Okay. And so I work like that a large amount of the time. And what working with Dan is that you have we have this system of if we lock horns on something, like he's got an idea and he loves it, and I have an idea and I love it, and it's different to his idea, we're both wrong. So we accept we're both completely wrong on whatever avenue we're trying to take the story down. Yeah. And we realize there's a third option neither of us have considered, but it requires both of us to find it. And that's our working method. And we use that a lot. So we end up with stories that we work on together that would never have happened if it weren't for me and him working on it.
Cool.
So that's how that happens. There's a sort of type, it kind of works like that when I'm working on my own. But again, it's like the splitting off and just whatever mood sort of takes you. Yeah. It's more like a moods thing where but it is like, you know, today I felt like writing about this and then just seeing how, and then revisiting that and rethinking it like this. I don't think it's much of a slower process, weirdly. It sounds like it would be a slower process, but it's not really. But yeah, I
suppose that's because you're in control of the overall narrative as well, aren't you? So when you're by yourself, you kind of, you know where Act 1 is and where Act 5 is. How you get there is kind of more open to your interpretation without... Yeah.
And I also do that. There's a large amount of, like, when I get scripts from Dan, I will basically approach that character as an actor would. So that's what I mean by the splitting off in personalities thing. It's more like it's like an acting part that you take. When I'm working on my own, it's similar. So I'll sit down. So when I'm working with Dan, if there's a day where I'm drawing, I'll just draw one character all day. And part of the reason for that is, so I'll do a page of artwork, but I'll only draw that character on 4 or 5 pages, wherever they appear. And then I'll come back the next day, I'll do a different character. And even if they're in the same scene and you sort of get a reverse shot and you get the other character, I will act that character through to the end so that I stay in character. So it's a bit like that.
That's
so
an interesting way, yeah. I don't know if I'd have the discipline.
Sort of thing. Oh, and the other thing is the touchstones that I use when I'm working like that is I use music to do that as well. Oh, so I set a mood up in my head, and today I'm thinking like this. That's what I mean by splitting off different ways of your personality. Aspects of yourself that you kind of delve into. Because we have different things to do with people, so I kind of I tried to tap into all of that. If you get what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the music, for example, I have a couple of CDs that I will play on a Friday on the way back from work. They are not the same CDs that I listen to going to work on a Monday morning.
That's exactly that. So I try to get into that in my own personality, if that makes sense.
Cool. I don't think I'd have the discipline. You know, when I doodle. I'm a comic book fan, so of course I doodle. Yeah, it's what we do, right? And my wife will say to me, "Oh, you should draw a strip," and I'm like, "No, I'm not good enough to draw a strip. Forget it." But then I'll do something. I'll draw whatever, and it's fine. I'll find that I'm not disciplined enough. If I draw, I don't know, Wonder Woman jumping and crushing a car, I haven't got the time or the patience to draw the background. I'm not interested in the background. So if I was focused on just one character, I'll be all through that story pit of that. Yeah. Sooner or later, I'm going to get to the point where it's Sunday, I've got to do some drawing because I'm at the deadline, and it's buildings, and I hate buildings.
Yeah.
How do you kind of curb that kind of?
When you're drawing a comics page, it's a multidisciplinary thing. So you're basically, I think what I find weird is the concept that somebody draws a panel and then they can't draw the next one until they've drawn everything in that panel. The thing is, you're spinning 3 different plates when you're doing that. So you several different plates when you're doing that, because you've got a couple of characters in the scene, so that's 2 different plates straight away, and you got a background. Drawing a background is not the same as drawing a character at all, and it's in a totally different mindset as well. So you want a day where you're just in that mindset. That's
analytical. You want to be analytical. No pauses. I want a ruler and 2D perspective. Go.
Yeah. All you do is you get your mindset. You figure out what your mindset is, or what you need to be doing, and you just do that. Don't give yourself pressure of trying to figure everything out, because it's a lot. You know, so I mean, the first time I ever started doing comics, I was doing 120-page graphic novels, and that's a huge amount. So the immediate thing I did was I worked in double-page spreads, because now it's just 60 pages. So, and then if I could break down those 60 pages even more, I always find ways to break down the blocks completely.
Okay.
And that makes it really not easier, but it allows you to focus, and you don't get stressed out about it, and you just kind of calmly doing the one thing at a time. Cool. You know, bomb disposal experts, right? This is key advice that I get from so when they're defusing a bomb, they've got 3 points that they make about how to stay calm and not get stressed out. And one of those is about, one is rabbit holing, not allowing yourself to go down what ifs and stuff like that. The other one, I forgot what the third one is now, so the bomb's going to go off.
The third one's going to go boom. At that point, you're not worried anymore.
The second one is that whole thing of one step at a time.
Yeah.
And so just figure out your steps, and then you basically break it down that way. And also acknowledge what the steps are each time, which hence the green and the blue pen, and, you know, it's just me.
I really like that idea.
Organized. Yeah.
I really like that idea. I like how different colors can equate to, and of course, if you're writing it longhand in a pad, then you can follow the track of that thought all the way through to, and then if you're seeing it next to other colors, you can see how it interacts with the main story, or how it interacts with the characters. I really like that idea. That's such a clever thing. Excellent.
If you ever read something that you've written a while ago, and you read it and you go, "Who the hell wrote this?" Well, I have that on a daily basis. So it just helps me figure out, okay, where am I coming from? Oh, I get it. And so music helps as well, because it's like you hear a track and it's like, now I remember the emotion I'm going for.
This is my next point. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I think a lot of the first 3 movies, that's New Hope through Jedi, just get that out there. A lot of that isn't to do with Luke Skywalker or Han Solo or the Millennium Falcon, Chewbacca maybe, but it's the music. It's like John Williams. I can listen to a piece of John Williams music and I remember, E.T. soundtrack still makes me cry, and I'm in my 50s, but the music it just hits me, you know, and the music
emotional resonance.
Exactly. So there's a lot of emotional resonance in this book, because what we said earlier, the things that your characters are going through, albeit not specifically everyone's gone through, but that sense of loss. Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. We'll take a quick break for one of our adverts for our other shows before we get into the book and talk some more. Where shall we go? Which should we do? Well, you know what? We have a show about toys. Crisis in the Toyverse. It's my guy, my friend Bobo. It's his birthday today. So Bobo, this one's for you. It's Crisis in the Toyverse. There you go, figure fans. Crisis in the Toyverse. If you're complaining that he takes the figures out of the box, write to him, not me. What can I say? Toys meant to be played with, right? All right, cool, excellent. So, I.N.J, you're working with Karen Berger on Berger
Yeah.
Books for Dark Horse. What is that like? Because to me, Karen Berger is Vertigo Comics. I still, even now, don't understand why DC pulled the plug on Vertigo. Then go and do Blackline Comics, which is practically Vertigo, but for superheroes. I don't know. It's like, you know, did they run out of Batman books recently? No. So anyway, chill. What's it like working with Karen? She is a legitimate superstar, right?
Yeah, she's brilliant to work with. Yeah, absolutely amazing. The two jobs that I've done, well, there's three, because years ago under Vertigo I did New Dead Audience with Dan Abnett. Weirdly, that's how
Wow.
Dan and I got started, and that was the first time I'd really done something with Karen. But yeah, that was fantastic. I think it's like on the last two jobs, everything which we did with oh my god, my brain just completely said Christopher Cantwell. So working with Christopher Cantwell, and we can then my brain blanked on Karen Berger as well. Yeah, with Karen as well on that book, because she brought me in on that book, was that was amazing. It was an incredible experience because I learned a lot from doing it. Like huge amounts. It changed how I worked basically from that point onwards. Everything I've done since that book has been done because of that book in a way. And likewise working with her on this book, you know, the same thing completely. It's a huge learning moment basically whenever I'm working with her. She's fantastic to work with. So yeah, it's a huge privilege to be able to do it.
So I'm going to ask the big question then.
Yeah.
How and why? Because I mean, I think she's fantastic on Vertigo. I thought the Vertigo books were absolutely top notch. Don't get me wrong. I love me some superheroes. I love superheroes as much as the next guy. But Vertigo can, you know, there's no reason why Swamp Thing should be in a superhero book. There's no reason why John Constantine should be on the Justice League. And there's certainly no reason why Zatanna should be out of fishnets and on a superhero book. Put her in the fishnets, put her in a Vertigo book. That's what you know. But so what makes Karen so good to work for? Or work with, I should say. Work with.
What makes her good to work with? Generally, it's just that. Everything seems to be, there's such a huge amount of value to it in terms of an education, basically. I'm definitely one of the people who always feels like they should be learning. And so there's a huge amount with regard to that. There's a huge amount of experience there as well that you glean from, fundamentally, when working with her. She's brilliant to work with. She's brilliant to bounce ideas off of. Yeah, just really lucky. The mad thing is, she contacted me with regard to working on everything. And yeah, it was bizarre. I never expected that. I really wanted to work with her. And of course, Vertigo had come to an end, and I thought, oh, that's it, blown it now. I did get to do one thing with her at least, you know. But I really wanted to work with her again, and then to be contacted out of the blue by her to work on everything was fantastic. And then when that came to an end, then she asked me if I had anything that I'd want to write, and that's how we came to this, really.
Cool.
So that was incredible too.
I remember a few years back I was interviewing a writer, and I can't remember the name, so apologies for that. But he was at a Comic Con, and he saw an editor that he really liked, and he was like, "Oh, I really want to work with that editor, but I daren't go over and talk to him because he won't know who I am." And you know, and then as the day progressed, the editor bumps in and goes, "Oh, you're," and then says, "You're such and such. I really loved blah blah blah," and that's how they got together to work on a book. And it just made me realize that, you know what, comic book creators can get a little bit like fanboy, like, oh my god, you know, that's you know, look at that, that's cool.
So
you
remember Enigma came out?
Sorry?
Do you remember reading Enigma when it came out? all those years ago, Duncan Fegredo. And
no, I don't. I'm afraid I don't.
Enigma. It was the first one of the early Vertigo books. I think it was almost the second.
I think my Vertigo. I think I predated Vertigo a little bit because I was reading the Alamo with Swamp Thing stuff.
Yeah.
So I predate Vertigo just a little, and then when Vertigo came out, I spent time with John Constantine and some Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol was a little bit too far out there for me. And no disrespect to Grant Morrison, that's exactly how I feel about his writing. Sometimes it's bang on. Sometimes it's a little bit too far, and I can't make the jump. But Animal Man, I loved Animal Man for a while. You know, again, Grant Morrison. So I've kind of had that sort of. That's my Vertigo, and then obviously the bottom fell out of the.
I had that.
Ironically, Sandman wasn't my Vertigo, and everyone loves Sandman, but I'm like, I'm not.
No, when I was
not. Go on.
I went to a UCAC all those years ago, and they had editors there from Vertigo looking at people's portfolios. And this is years ago, and I went in with my folio at that time, and I can remember showing them. They said, "This is fantastic. Come along on next week. We'd like to give you something to do." I was like, "Great," and I chickened out. So and then basically, I just tried because I loved what they were doing, and I just didn't feel like imposter syndrome sets in very fast at that point. So I chickened out. Basically, I swore to myself that before when I started working in comics, you know, when I was, I don't know, 35 or something like that, or somewhere about that, and I started working in comics, and I swore to myself that I would basically correct that wrong and work for Vertigo again. And just before I turned, and I gave myself before I'm 40, I've got to do this. Just before I turned 40, New Dead Audience came out. So I just managed to get it and under the line. So
just got it.
So I mean, I have for years wanted to work with it, but
So that's the book that killed Vertigo. Wow, I've got it. I'm joking.
Well, it was one of the last.
I jest, of course. So, working with Karen on the Berger Books imprints, how much impact did Dark Horse actually have on that, or is Karen just left to her own devices?
Very much, Karen. I just everything's done through Karen. So cool. every bit of reporting back and. Yeah, just deal directly with Karen.
Yeah. It's cool because, I mean, Dark Horse Comics need this, don't they? Because, I mean, they've lost a couple of franchises. They've lost Star Wars, lost the Aliens, Predator stuff to Marvel, or Disney, depending on depending how you look at it. So Dark Horse are kind of, for me, over the last couple of years, are kind of not rebranded, but they've kind of gone back to what they were before they got the big tie-in deals. You know, back when Concrete was a book. You know, do you remember Concrete, Paul Chadwick?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I remember I read Dark Horse way back when they were producing Cheval Noir, which was like reprints of all the European stuff. Yeah. I read that back to cover. That was fantastic. And there was, but they also, that was around about the time of the Mask as well, like Concrete, Mask, and absolutely.
Time Cop was theirs as well at some point.
They also have like a lot of that stuff now. So a lot of the books that they've got, like I kind of see Black Hammer almost in a similar sort of mold as that. Of course, you got Hellboy. You know, the Hellboy universe has expanded greatly. You know?
I call that the Mignolaverse.
Yeah,
because there's BPRD, there's Hellboy, there's Sapien. Sabian,
which has been there since the beginning, you know. So, but it's a lot of them. You know, they produce very much that sort of tone has been consistent since the start. Really.
Agreed. It's that I'm not going to say mature because a lot of companies are doing mature stuff, but it's kind of like a sensible mature, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's not methodical, it's thorough, it's very much, you know, of its place. And I think when you look at a Dark Horse book, you know what you're going to get, as opposed to some of the other companies out there. Some of them can be hit and miss. I mean, so some of the Boom stuff that they do, independent from their tie-ins, some of it's really great. some of it's not so great, and so on and so forth. But I think Dark Horse for me are very much in that model of creating strong storylines and strong characters and using great creators to do that. So there you go.
Yeah,
hey, and you're one of them. Check that out.
It's got quite a link with and a history of European books as well. So it definitely, and the stuff that I do is very much more like a European market type.
Yeah, we're going to have a quick look at the book here. We're not going to delve too far into it because I want people to buy it. Definitely has a European style to things. I've gone too far away. There we are. Go with that page. Yeah, you can see it's very. Is that your preferred style, or did you adapt to show European with it being based somewhat in a kind of European environs?
That's just how I've always really worked, I guess. It's right because like the big influences when I was growing up were European books. I mean, I grew up on Tintin and.
I can see that now you've said it. Now you've said it, I can see it.
Yeah, I grew up on Asterix and Tintin, and I've read Largo Winch and loads of books like that. Like, oh God, off the top of my head, Valerian and Laureline.
Who else said Valerian?
Yeah,
Pat Mills.
Valerian and Laureline was a massive influence. When I was at school, I used to sit there and just drawing from that book all the time. That's probably a bigger influence than say Tintin. I just read a lot of Tintin as a kid because my mum she was a nurse and she used to bring them home from the hospital. So anything that was like falling apart in the waiting room, like the old Doom Lord, stuff like that, I would get those. They would be literally falling to pieces by the time I got them, but I got them. And then, but there was also like, because I grew up bilinguals and my English was just really kind of quite slowly adapting, so to speak. So it's like I wasn't taken to it as quickly. I was drawing all the time rather than writing, basically, as a kid. And she was trying to encourage me to use words rather than just pictures. And so that's where the comics came in as well, because it got me reading a lot. And then, so there's that. There's also the European stuff, but also the pacing is the way that I pace stuff is much more based, much more inspired by Japanese comics.
I'm getting that a lot. Yeah,
I definitely have like a mix of European and Japanese that informs my choices. It's mainly because that's essentially what I grew up reading. So
no 2000 AD in there.
Yeah, well, it is like, but it would be more things like Kevin O'Neill, but no, it's not evident in the work, I don't think at all. But except that basically I do stuff for 2018 now, so technically. But but I think when I was reading, Ace Trucking was a big deal when I was a kid as well. I used to love Ace Trucking, so all that kind of stuff was a big influence. And Strontium Dog. Massively into Strontium Dog, like way more than Judge Dredd. So, I like Judge Dredd with the Dark Judges, or when it was Chopper.
I like the Dark Judge. I like the Dark Judges. Although my little hill that I was on a couple of years ago was when they brought out the Batman Who Laughs, and I was like, "It's just Judge Death," and everyone's like, "What?" I'm like, "Look up Judge Death, and that's who you've got. That's that character. Stop messing with me, DC." But yeah, Dark Judges, Judge Anderson. That's kind of my Judge Dredd. After that, I'm kind of done. I like Chopper. I like a little bit of ABC Warrior.
Yeah,
the classics.
Do you remember when Bisley first showed up, when he was drawing Joey Pineapples, and that was just fantastic. That was just extraordinary drawing at the time. I remember that. Seeing that. How the hell did you do that? Like a fisheye lens type shot.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Dan Dare from the 80s, not the originals. Back when Eagle was a photo book. There was a Dan Dare comic book in there that I really liked. Really clean art. So, I kind of that's kind of
I read 2000 AD from Prog 1. So
really,
and then dipped in and out over the years. But basically, I definitely was there at the beginning because I remember there was a free spinner with the first issue.
There was.
And then there was, but the one I really remember is the cyborg stickers that you got, the second one. They were like, put on your arm and stuff. I remember that distinctly because, you know, $6 Million Man was on TV at the time. So I was thinking, this is great. And that was straight from Prog 2, I think. So, yeah,
did you know that Judge Dredd only appears from Prog 2 onwards? Judge Dredd isn't in Prog 1.
Yeah, okay. Oh, what's his name? Robo Hunter was another thing that I really liked. And Halo Giant.
Yeah. So from there on, for me, it was if my dad was alive now, he'd be a geek. He made sure that I had a whole understanding. So he wouldn't just buy Batman, Spider-Man books. He'd be buying like Thor and Captain America and Dr. Fate. I'd be like, why do I want to read about this bloke? He doesn't even speak English. It's all like ye olde and all that sort of stuff. I don't want that. Give me Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane. That's what I wanted. But since working with Comic Crusaders, I get to see a whole range of stuff, including a whole host of indie stuff. That's cool.
Yeah.
For those that are interested in the book, there is the link. The book looks like that. Oh, look at that. Forgotten Dreams and the Bicycle Spoke. Very nice. The link's there. Go to your local comic book shop. Get it ordered. It is due out on November 9th. So you've got a little bit of time to get that done. If you're interested to talk to I.N.J and listen to or see more stuff, there's the Twitter at I.N.J Culbard. Dead simple. Give him a follow. You get all the up-to-date stuff. There you go. Cool. So your 30-second elevator pitch. Why would somebody want to pick up Salamander? Hey, I'm getting good now.
I love how you're saying it now. Why would they want to pick it up? Oh my God, you've really put me on the spot now.
Yeah, I'm not accepting just cause, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's a story about loss. It's a story about emotion, and it's a story about finding what you thought you had lost forever.
There you go.
It's just like I should do that. I should do something like this.
Exactly that. So you saved me the time.
I got your back on this. It's fine.
The weirdest thing is, like, all this kind of stuff, when people say, can you break it down in a sentence? It's very hard when you've been in there. Like, it's quite hard to do.
I've read the book. No, you can't. You can't do it in a sentence. It's a massive disservice.
When you finally get to writing the blurb on the back to like sum it up, and you really wish you had that block of text at the beginning when you were pitching the project, it's always the case.
I write reviews for Comic Crusaders, our sister website, and I have to put like a meta message at the so people can find it and all that sort of stuff. And I never want to use the previews blurb because I think to myself, no, I'm a little bit. I can do something more than that. But honestly, there's times I look at the blurb, I'm thinking, what can I say? It's like Joker makes a violent return to the world of Gotham. Will Batman ever be the same again? Hashtag probably yes. There, done. Next. Maybe with less cynicism, perhaps, but still. All right, excellent. I.N.J, thank you so much for a really entertaining book. I absolutely loved it, cover to cover.
Brilliant.
The book is out November 9th, as I say. Get it down to the local comic book shops, get it ordered, get it pre-ordered, wherever good quality books are sold. There you go. I.N.J, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've been your host. You're welcome. I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favourite shows. I'm sure Bob will be getting some figures for his birthday, so check out Crisis in the Toyverse. I mean, I haven't got him one. Of course, if you like your comics a little bit older, check out the Old Timers comic book show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. recently I have had a bit of a Vertigo trip, so happy Halloween. It's there for everyone. All right, I.N.J, one more time, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for everybody else, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.shop, all about comic pop culture.